think one of the greatest things about Chainsaw Man every single week when it releases a chapter is that you never truly know what you're going to get. You don't know what type of emotion you're going to feel, what type of atmosphere is being played upon, or the tone of the chapter itself. It's always such a polarizing experience, and even within that chapter there could be multiple and conflicting different atmospheres and emotions to create this jumbled mess that completely toys with your feelings. The previous chapter is a prime example of the different perspectives people take on looking at Chainsaw Man. And while that chapter definitely had comedy and had this overlooming sense of humor inlaid within it, for me it was extremely unsettling, almost disturbing. I think a big attribute towards that is a lot of the facial expressions that go into a Chainsaw Man's character design and how expressionable a lot of these characters are and how many different expressions they go through. It's probably one of the most consistent things that Chainsaw Man offers. Other than its overall chaotic nature and storytelling, its use of facial expressions is extremely top tier. And it may be something that you don't even pick up on, but it's pretty much one of the easiest things that we as readers can recognize and justify our own emotions to adapt to how this chapter is going to be. If I see someone being sad, I know I should technically feel sad as well. Instead, it kind of just throws you through the chapter. That in itself is an experience, and you get that when you read Chainsaw Man every single week. When you connect last week's chapter to this week's chapter, there is a clear difference in its overall tone. And you would think, because it's somewhat similar, that it should feel somewhat identical. In reality, it's almost the complete opposite. Also, if you end up enjoying this video, consider subscribing. I'd greatly appreciate it. A big thing that pushes this chapter forward is Denji's desires coming out more prominently, and it's really starting to blur the line between this Chainsaw Man form and Denji's personal desires himself. These two are instinctively different, but blend and intertwine in this weird, complex way. Almost like it's two completely different individuals controlling one body, and technically it kind of is. When you have Pochita and Denji fused together, their mindset, their emotions are so universally connected that it creates a situation like this. But with how the desires are somewhat leaked through, it reels the whole design of Chainsaw Man back a little bit. It grounds him a little bit further. Denji himself as an individual starts to peer through just a little bit more. I think it's safe to assume at this point that the only controlling point that Denji has is somewhat based off that desire and instinct to fulfill it, nothing else in between. And what helps back this up a little bit further is once Denji actually gets that burger thanks to Kobeni finally delivering it, more desires start to come through, and the will to push for that desire. But in a way, he's also very subtle and sensible about it. He's not overly demanding, he's not causing destruction or obliterating everything in an instant. He's still somewhat subdued to a degree. Kobeni is obviously dragged into this, with Denji wanting to go on a date with a girl, and as they go get ice cream, and she then goes to dance for Denji and somewhat have a decent time. Or at least a one-sided decent time. Kobeni is absolutely horrified and doesn't know how to dance and really just can't comprehend the situation of what is actually going on. The Chainsaw Man form doesn't necessarily respond to too many things. More so stuff that is hostile towards him or at least aggravated towards him, like a devil hunter comes through and just gets completely obliterated. The first guy who thinks it's a prank, he gets obliterated. The way I see it, it's more so stuff that comes in between his desires, even if it's fractional. It could be a person, a thing, an idea, or even a building. I have to give massive props to Kobeni. I think a lot of people are going to really love her character, or at least adore her character after this. The experience she's gone through, and I know the previous chapter built her up extremely well, and originally if you previously didn't like her, by the end of that last chapter, you might have felt a little bit differently, or you may have started to like her. This chapter is pretty much more of the same, but with a different tone. She's very expressionable and emotional and not really sure on how to handle the situation at all. She's just following orders. After Denji gets some of his desires out of the way, he disappears and leaves Kobeni alone, which I find rather interesting in terms of her being the one asking for help and at least providing something for her not to get killed. Obviously, she doesn't know about what the Hero of Hell is or what the Chainsaw Man ability truly is, but because she subconsciously provided something for him, which was his desires, he didn't actually kill her. Compare that to Makima. When she asked for help, he obliterated all the devils, came back and obliterated her. It seems like there's a bit of give and take there, where there has to be some sort of an equal footing of you give something and I give something in return. In reality, Makima didn't give anything in return, but Kobeni did. Potentially why her life was spared. The finale of the chapter is probably the biggest thing because this is going to lead into a massive situation. An incredible fight is on the horizon. So Makima returns, which isn't much of a surprise because she technically can't die thanks to her contracts, but she brings forth a couple of other individuals to obviously fight Chainsaw Man directly. Originally, I thought it was going to be the people that were laid out within the hallway, but it seems like she's going to save them to potentially emotionally distort Denji at any given time. That in itself is completely theoretical. I'm not too sure if Chainsaw Man could even recognize Power or Aki or whoever that was somewhat close to him, but because of those desires seeping back through, because of Denji's personality somewhat coming back through and being more open, the idea of seeing Power or seeing Aki could actually bring him back out a little bit more and even revert him. But of course, Makima isn't playing those cards yet. Instead, she's got a couple of surprising faces that we haven't seen for a little bit. The more prominent ones being Katana Man, Reze, and Quan-Chi, or Quan-Chi, I'm not too sure how you pronounce her name. Obviously pretty powerful individuals on their own. Makima's obviously controlling them, and similar to how she was controlling Denji, she's controlling these people in the exact same way. That she's going to offer them something, which is a date at this point, for them to potentially kill Chainsaw Man, or at least try their best to. There's also a couple of other individuals there who I cannot name for the life of me. I'm not sure if they've been within the story the whole time or if they're new characters in general. They don't seem like hybrids, but you never truly know. They could be similar to Quan-Chi, they could be just devil hunters that are controlled by Makima. Her arsenal is pretty much endless at this point. She can control anyone, so you never really know what to expect with her. The more weapons she will pull out. That basically ends off the whole chapter, but I feel the saddest thing about this and the fight that's about to go down, all of these characters have the possibility of getting erased from existence, which when you think about that may not necessarily be a big deal because these characters were somewhat dead already, but forgetting about Reze, forgetting about Katana Man and Quan-Chi is a rather big deal. Most likely never come back into the story and no one will remember who they were at all. I'm excited to see if something like that does go down and if that could easily tunnel and snowball into the other idea of Power and Aki if it comes down to the worst of it being completely erased from existence. And I have a slight suspicion we may be building up towards that Makima may play those cards and the tension of them being erased completely, but Denji manages to potentially fight the urge and bring himself back, obviously because of witnessing his two closest friends. I really enjoyed this chapter. As simple as it was, it sets a lot of different things into motion, especially with this massive upcoming fight which could completely reshape the story in its entirety. Denji alongside Chainsaw Man, alongside Pochita, is evolving into this being that is completely uncontrollable and even one of the most feared, intelligent, and just addicting characters at this point. Makima herself is even somewhat struggling to contain him. So it will be extremely interesting to see what cards Makima puts out to play, because knowing her, she has an endless supply and a lot of sneaky stuff up her sleeve. So if you have read the chapter, let me know what you think. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. But I want to thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Drink plenty of water, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.